Death is one of the most controversial things in superhero comics. Whenever it happens, people are aware of the fact that the hero who died would be back eventually. It's frustrating for fans of the killed-off characters to have to wait a few years to see their character grace the page once again. A lot of people see death in comics as financially exploitative. Clickbait to take their money away. To be honest, I kind of agree with these statements. Death in superhero comics can feel weightless and insignificant a lot of the time. But no one can deny how iconic and impactful some comic book deaths are. The death of Superman in 1992 took the world by storm. DC Comics' most iconic superhero, the very man who defined the superhero genre, being unabashedly battered by Doomsday's bare fists. No one will ever forget Gwen Stacy's dramatic death at the hands of the Green Goblin, a moment that would leave a major mark on Spidey's tragic character that lasts until today. I don't think I can name many other comics that killed off a character as creatively as Jason Todd in Death in the Family, which left the fate of the second Robin's life to a bunch of fans over the phone. These three deaths have not only had a massive impact on the respective characters' histories afterward, but also marked historical moments in the comic book industry. But I feel like there's one more classic comic book death that, although didn't impact the comic book industry as much as these three did, that deserves as much praise. It's a beautiful, emotional, and sensitive story about a hero who died and has since never come back. The death of Captain Mar-Vell by Jim Starlin is truly a remarkable read. It sees the original Captain Mar-Vell recounting his origin story for documentation. He was a Kree warrior sent on a deadly mission to Earth by his captain who wanted him to die in order to take away Una, the woman he loved, for himself. Although Una suffered a deadly fate, Mar-Vell found meaning and purpose through his encounters with us humans. He betrayed his own race and sought to be a defender of Earth, becoming the first Captain Mar-Vell. He has this cosmic awareness, which allows him to calculate the exact amount of force it would take to knock his enemies unconscious, but not harm them in any deadly way. But this vaguely defined power goes beyond just combat. In this comic, it makes him aware of his upcoming death. After he battles the late Thanos' cult, he says, I'm afraid the easy life is catching up with me. This sort of melee is getting to be too much for me. Mar-Vell starts coughing more intensely by the minute. Mentor and Eros become worried and tell him to go to the computer named Isaac to run medical tests. Captain Mar-Vell agrees, but he tells them that he's afraid Isaac will only be able to confirm what he already suspects. Through his power of cosmic awareness, Cap has been aware this whole time of what has been going on inside his body, and he thinks that there is absolutely no way for him to be cured. I've studied a mountain of medical volumes, searching for a cure for my particular problem, and failed. I've not asked for help before because I've been unable to voice my fear. I can understand that. It's a terrible disease. We on Titan call it the inner decay. You Kree have named it the blackened. Earthmen call it cancer. Unlike most superhero deaths, this one isn't flashy and bombastic. He doesn't risk his life saving the entire universe. He doesn't die at the hands of some supervillain in a colorful costume. It's a heartbreaking death that is all too familiar. What makes this comic special isn't just its unique concept, but its beautiful execution. Much like making the most of your time knowing that you don't have much left, Jim Starlin fills every page in this 60-page graphic novel with so much care in terms of the art and the story, knowing that he might not have a shot to tell this kind of story again. The intricate details and shadows when showing a vast array of heroes and villains is astounding. Steve Olive's color work here is gorgeous and has so much depth compared to the average 1980s comic. It's scary to see Captain Marvel's body deteriorate as time goes on in the comic. He goes from looking fully healthy at the start to looking malnourished and slim when he has to put on his life support tunic, and finally looking completely drained and helpless when lying down on his bed near the end of the book. You can tell that they really worked their butts off to really respect and give death by disease the weight it deserves, not just from every stroke of a pen, but from every word written. Although the comic is dense for 60 pages, it never feels like it's wasting your time. It doesn't treat you like a dumb kid, but has all its characters act rationally and thoughtfully. When Rick Jones finds out about Captain Marvel's cancer, he begs the Avengers to do something about it, but it's too complicated. With Captain Marvel being Kree and how his negabands are both keeping him alive and letting the cancer spread at the same time, the superheroes just can't find an easy solution. Rick angrily storms out and slams the door, but the Avengers didn't really need Rick to come and tell them to make a solution. They were already coming up with a solution once they found out Captain Marvel had cancer. But the thought that occurred to them was, Why haven't we used our genius, abilities, and powers to stamp out this dreaded killer before this? Each has his own answer. Each finds his own answer unsatisfactory. It isn't just the Avengers that are unsatisfied, but especially Captain Mar-Vell himself. It's heartbreaking to watch him tell his loved ones like Elysius and Rick of his incoming death. It's difficult believing that you're immortal, powerful, and have won against foes like Thanos only for your own body to betray you. Captain Marvel goes through every terrible thought and feeling. You see him writhe in pain and lash out in anger at his unfair situation. I just never figured it would happen to me. Deep down inside me, I felt that those special things that make me who I am would just live forever. It's hard to accept that the world is going to go on without me. Damn. This book also deals with the idea of death by sickness possibly being better than dying suddenly in a battle, because you have the time to say goodbye. And what a grand goodbye does everyone give. Everyone from the Avengers to the Skrulls who appreciates Mar-Vell for being their greatest enemy comes to pay respects. Some deal with the situation harder than others. And then, near the end of the book, Captain Marvel falls into a coma on his bed with all the other characters surrounding him in worry under the darkness that paints them blue. We then enter Captain Marvel's subconscious, and he meets Thanos, who tells him to fight one last magnificent battle with him. Thanos in the story symbolizes death, and Captain Marvel does not back down against him. He tries with all his might to conquer death. He can't accept the reality that death is inevitable, and he doesn't give up. No matter how much is thrown at him, he endures. But it's useless. Death is coming for him, and he finally accepts it. His heart stops beating. Thanos tells him that this is only the beginning, and we end by seeing the rest of the characters mourn and grieve the passing of a legendary hero. Despite being over 40 years old and feeling like a tale as old as time, the death of Captain Mar-Vell is still one of Marvel's greatest graphic novels. It is a story that actually gives death the weight it deserves and shows how unpredictable and unfair it truly is. It and many other pieces of media are examples that show art not just being an escape from our problems through fun stories and fantastical worlds, but also its ability to help us cope amidst reality's harsh climate. Its power to be vulnerable when most of us are afraid to be open. Its capability to touch us in a deep way and show us that we don't suffer alone. There are so many stories that remind people to treasure life and those who make it beautiful. And I think Jim Starlin's Death of Captain Mar-Vell has been one of the best to tell it. So at last, goodbye. I'll be happy just